Welcome to the Friday Happy Hour with victory strategist, award-winning author and your happy hour host, Annmarie Kelly. Each week, Annmarie chats with women who have reinvented, started over or wrote fabulous next chapters. They share how they overcame their midlife challenges and how you can too. So kick back with some good happy hour something to drink and enjoy today's show.
All of my friends tell me that I'm the good girl, yes they do. They all see me as being so perfect, little Miss Goody Two Shoes. If I do something a little risque, they all gasp and I just say,
Hi and welcome. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour with me, Annmarie Kelly, and I'm that recovering good girl and your victorious woman empowerment partner. And this is where us victory chicks and you guys who love us meet on Fridays to chat about things we can do to make our lives better and more fulfilling and give us a little more jazz and sparkle. And I'm glad you're here with me today. Okay, we're halfway through summer. Now, you could say July is summer's midlife. And just like July, you and I, who are now in midlife, still have plenty of time to be fabulous, enjoy what's left of our summer season. So, we know our season isn't over, but what do we do to make the most of it? I was thinking about that when I invited lawyer turned joy coach, Kathy McCabe, to Happy Hour. If you want more joy in your life, stick around to hear Kathy McCabe's take on putting more joy into your life. If you were here last week, you might remember that my guest, Leslie Handler, and I were talking about old scary TV shows, and one of them was The Twilight Zone. That show ran from 1959 to 1964 with its creator, Rod Serling, being that ominous figure. Remember that with the deadpan voice at the beginning and the end of the show? It ran for years in syndication. Well, Leslie and I said there was another show that focused on scary things, but we couldn't remember the name of it, and we were both flummoxed. Well, the other day, Leslie remembered. It was The Outer Limits. Do you remember? It was a Twilight Zone Me Too show, but it had more of a science fiction kind of twist. Well, that one ran for just 2 seasons in the mid-1960s, and then that too ran in reruns. And I think they did another one about 10 years ago. But then I remembered another one called Night Gallery. Now, you and I were both probably pretty young when we were being scared out of our wits by all those shows. Then we still had to stay up late to watch them. But until today, I didn't realize that Twilight Zone and Night Gallery were both created by Rod Serling. That man was responsible for more childhood nightmares than Khrushchev. And while I was poking around the internet and tickling the dark crevices of my mind, I found a bizarre little site that has pictures from Night Gallery. I posted a link to that on today's radio wrap-up at victoriouswoman.com. And if you're ever wondering where the wrap-up is, you just have to go to victoriouswoman.com and click the radio link at the top of the page. Okay, guys, here's one for you. You've probably seen the insurance commercials that are all done on the shoreline in New York. They all have the Statue of Liberty in the background. There must be a dozen different scenarios with someone telling you a story about a car accident and how their company was good to them or not good to them. And they should have taken this new company. Well, this week, Joseph drew my attention to one of the newer ones. And here's why. That commercial has a middle-aged black couple, and the guy is talking about some accident that he was in and how his insurance company has accident forgiveness. Now, it's clear from the look on the woman's face that she was ticked off that the guy had an accident. I'm guessing because they had a high deductible that got paid out of the family funds, and then she couldn't buy the new sofa she had her eye on that they needed because the old sofa was getting worn out. But now they have to wait to buy it because they had to pay the deductible for this accident that he had. You victory chicks know what I'm talking about, right? So anyway, the guy is praising the insurance company because they have accident forgiveness. And he thinks it's a pretty mature thing to do. And he's explaining it to you and me in the camera, into the camera, but he's clearly talking to her. Well, I'm sure it's not a stretch of the mind to figure out why Joseph loves that commercial. And I'll bet you guys can all understand it too. You all want accident forgiveness. When you crack up the car, when you drop a favorite bowl that might have belonged to your sweetie's mom, when you broke her favorite mug. You know what I'm talking about? But here's the thing, you guys. The insurance company only gives you accident forgiveness one time. And that's reasonable. Now, you probably got accident forgiveness at home one time because we, fabulous, victorious women, are mature. But even the insurance company caps accident forgiveness at one time. We did that, and probably more often than the insurance company ever would. So I'm sharing that with you so that when that commercial comes on, you can watch it and have as much of a giggle about it as Joseph and I have at my house. One time, guys. Only once for accident forgiveness. Now, here's something else. Did you see that beautiful model? Her name is Mara Martin. Walking the Sports Illustrated runway in a bikini while she was breastfeeding her newborn baby. She made quite a splash and got headlines all over the world. What did you think about it? Well, on Wednesday, I was talking to a woman, and she's probably late 20s, early 30s, who's about to be a second-time mom. And that's about that. She's about the same age as Mara. I asked her what she thought. She was almost horrified. She hadn't heard about it yet, and I was the first one to tell her. Now, she was horrified, and I was too, but not for the same reason. She was thinking about stretch marks. But I was going a little bit deeper, and here's why. Mara Martin marveled at the fact, this was in her interviews, that she was getting so much attention, and I'm quoting, for doing something I do every day. End quote. Then she posted on Instagram, quote, I am so grateful to be able to share this message and hopefully normalize breastfeeding and also show others that women can do it all, end quote. Okay, while Mara might be breastfeeding every day, I don't think she's doing it in a bikini while walking the runway in a room full of people and a slew of photographers. If she is, she must have some full house. Next, does she think anyone doubts that she knew exactly what the fuss was going to be all about? She's a beautiful woman doing a seemingly outrageous thing. And if she hadn't made a splash doing it, I'm guessing she would have been disappointed. It was all about the publicity. So that's two things. Here's another one. She hopes to normalize breastfeeding. Does she not realize that breastfeeding was the original method for feeding babies? Oh, wait, maybe she meant normalizing breastfeeding on the runway. Well, if that's it, then woohoo, I'm glad now I can do that. And thanks to Mara, I won't be a freak when I breastfeed on the catwalk. All right, you victory chicks and you guys, yes, I do know that ship has sailed. I won't be breastfeeding on the runway. I won't even be on the runway. So none of that really upsets me. But here's the big thing. Mary's really excited about showing everyone that women can do it all. I don't know about you, but that made me cringe. Yes, of course we can do it all. We already know that because as women we are powerful and victorious. We are capable, loving, and amazing creatures without whom the world would fall apart. Okay, so maybe not the whole world, but our little world of house and home. So, yes, we can do it all, but why should we? And why should we be expected to be that fabulous all the time at everything? I spent years teaching courses in work-life balance and breaking the cycle of overcare. I can tell you, and I'm not telling you Victory Checks anything you don't already know, women are tired of doing it all, or even more tired of being expected to do it all. And Mara Martin probably has a team of people helping her, watching the baby while she's working out to get her model figure back, cooking healthy food so she can lose the baby weight, waking up with the baby during the night so she can get her beauty sleep. You know, Victory Chicks, none of us need someone reminding us we can do it all. We need someone to remind us that we don't have to do it all and that our partners are there and maybe they could step up a bit more. Tell me what you think. I posted that on Facebook yesterday at the Victorious Woman Project. And you just have to go to Facebook and type in Victorious Woman Project. And I put it on my blog at victoriouswoman.com, so you can comment on either one of those places. And I'm going to ask Kathy McCabe about what she thinks about it. She's the mom of two and a lawyer-turned-coach focused on joy. And she's here with us. So we're going to take a break so you can go get some good happy hour something to drink. And when we come back, I'll be here with Kathy McCabe. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Are you one of those women who lived the first part of your life as a really good girl? That is, you did all the right things and followed all the so-called rules for women? I was like that too. But have you noticed that once you passed 40, you have less patience for those rules? Maybe you even think that the rules really don't make sense for you anymore. Maybe they never did, and you just didn't realize it. Do you want to go where other recovering good girls meet to inspire each other and support their new empowered selves? Then join me, Annmarie Kelly, and some very fabulous Victorious Women. We're on Facebook at the Victorious Woman Project. So go to facebook.com/Victorious Woman Project. I'll talk to you there. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and I'm ready to talk about joy with Kathy McCabe. Hi, Kathy. How are you?
Hey, Annmarie. I am great. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. You know, Kathy, I wanted to get your take on the Mara Martin thing. That I know you were here while I was talking about it, but before I do that, first I want my listeners to get to know a little something about you. So you're an attorney for over 20 years, right?
That is correct. I call myself a recovering lawyer.
I'm telling you, Kathy, I've had a lot of recovering lawyers on the show over time, over 5 years. What kind of law did you practice?
I worked mainly as a litigator. First, I worked in state government, city government, and then I worked at a law firm for 17 years. I handled all sorts of litigation cases, defending government organizations and companies. I used to call myself a jack of all trades, master of none.
So were you like the attorney on like Law and Order?
Oh, I always say if I had those kinds of jobs, I wouldn't have left the law, right?
Oh, seriously?
Because they were so glamorous, right? You never have to, study depositions for hours and hours and hours. You don't walk into court with, 0 notes, and
hair and makeup done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, not quite. But no, I did try cases, and I was in the courtroom, and I liked it for a while, and then I really grew to, it wasn't my passion, and that's mainly why I left.
So what was it about that? How was it not like first of all, I guess I'm wondering, Kathy, what made you get into that to begin with, and was it passionate when you started? Were you passionate about it when you started, and then that changed, and what changed?
So I think even when I was young, I wanted to be a lawyer. So it was something that was inherently in me because I think I like to argue. And I don't anymore, but so I think, and it was also I was a bit of a people pleaser, and it was I'll be a lawyer because that'll get me prestige, blah blah blah. But there was something that I did want to become a lawyer initially, but the actual practice of law in litigation especially, I just came to realize, it's all focused on the past, who did what to whom, etc. And I just found that after a while draining, even though I was successful at it and I was a partner in my firm and I, certainly got promoted. I just realized all this focus on the past and all of that was not how I wanted to spend my time and energy.
Kathy, I never thought about that, but you're absolutely right. Whenever you've had, I had I sued a car manufacturer a couple of years ago, and every time we talked about it, I had to talk about what happened, how it happened, what was the... So it was constantly going back over stuff that I really didn't even want to be remembering in order to be able to get to the goal that I had of making the company responsible.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And, and sometimes it's necessary, but you really have to have the right mindset to do that. But when you're doing it all the time, I was doing it for other people, like in the past, it wasn't my passion anymore. And, I just realized, I don't want to spend the rest of my life doing this. So, and like I had a great job. I was making lots of money. My firm was really great to me. I was able to have flexible hours and all of that. But, it wasn't enough. And I'm, very happy I left, and I have zero regrets about it.
So then you did something. I have to tell you, I have a real estate broker's license. So I found, when you and I were talking about this, I found this kind of fascinating. You dabbled in real estate for a while as an investor. Mm-hmm. So what was that? Were you flipping houses? Is that what you were doing?
A little bit, yeah. So I realized, maybe 10, 12 years into my legal career, I'm like, okay, I know I don't want to do this full-time the rest of my life, but, what else can I do while I keep this job? And so one of the things, I always kind of liked real estate. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn about this. And so I did everything I could to learn about real estate investing. I took classes, etc. And then I started to buy and sell some properties, not on a big level, but small. I still do some, and I liked it. It was enjoyable. I learned a lot. And when I quit my job, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to focus then on my real estate stuff. And my kids, when I quit being a lawyer, my kids were about 5 and 6. They were pretty young. And that was kind of the plan.
Who used to do that a lot was Kathy Lee Gifford was big at flipping houses.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And Courtney Cox, that was her big thing, was flipping houses.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, both of them were really big into real estate, but were women who were really big into real estate. And even though I have a real estate broker's license, that really was not ever my thing. Like, I always thought it would be really cool to do, but the whole fixing the house up stuff. Did you like doing that part?
Well, you know what? I liked getting something of great value and then putting money into it and changing it and making it more valuable. You know what I mean? Like, I like the deal part, to put it that way. So I liked finding a great deal, and then, investing in it, and then, being able to sell it for more or rent it or whatever. And so, yeah, I like the deal part, and, and then creating something that wasn't very good and making it great.
Do you ever watch it? I'm guessing that you probably watch some of those shows. And there's one couple. It's a guy, and they're always stressed to the max, getting the place. They buy these really terrible properties and then fix them up.
I have watched a few, but honestly, even though I still do it some, it's not my passion now like coaching is.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I've evolved to I left law, I was like, okay, I'm done with that. I think I like real estate better, which I do and still do, but then it was like coaching. It's like, no, this is my true passion.
So you know what, Kathy, if I could flip a house and have a year to take to do it, and not have to worry about the finances, and maybe I would do that. But it's just I watch this guy and I think, who wants that stress?
Well, that's just it. I mean, and that's why I studied it a lot. I mean, you can easily lose your shirt in it.
Sure.
So I really, before I bought my first property, I looked at 50 or 60 properties, and I lived in one of the units, and I rented out the other two. So I really did my homework, and I made it so that even the worst case scenario, I was going to be okay, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I didn't mortgage my life,
yes,
or anything. I mean, quite often, that's the biggest advice if I was giving somebody in real estate. It's make sure it's money you can lose, because you can lose money.
Well, Kathy, my spouse had hired a massage therapist. He's a massage therapist. Disney hired somebody one time, and she was watching one of those TV people, and she bought a couple of properties. She was not in that position. She was trying to start a career in massage, and she was flipping house. She thought she would flip houses on the side, and you know what? She was. My heart went out to her. There was nothing that we could do about it, because when you start a new business, it takes a while to you start making money. And then they were going to foreclose on one of the houses. It can be a scary thing. You were smart to do all your homework.
Yeah, I mean, and that's certainly any advice I'd give to anybody. If you're starting something new, make sure you know a lot. You learn a lot about it. Talk to people who have done it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel on anything, because there are experts out there.
Now, Kathy, you're in your 50s, and you have some pretty young children. How old are they?
They are 12 and 11. I'm an old mom with young kids.
So what made you, how did you make the decision to have children in your 40s?
Well, getting married at 39 helped. So it was something that I just always knew and wanted to be a mom. Mm-hmm. It was never a question for me. And I just really, really wanted to have children. So it was we're going to do it.
So it wasn't even that much of a decision. It was just, here I am, and this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, it was just I knew I was going to be a mom. I can't explain it other than it was definitely something I wanted in my life.
And you were fortunate that it was easy. I have known women who have tried to do that in their 40s and not been able to get pregnant, and and for some of them that's the case. Well, and I knew people. I taught in a Catholic school, so everybody was really big on having babies and having them. I remember one woman telling me, if I could have been pregnant when I walked off the altar at my wedding, I would have been so happy. And then she couldn't get pregnant.
Oh, boy.
Yes. So you were really lucky, which is good.
Both my children are adopted, so...
That makes a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's good. That's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So now you were raising kids, you shifted out of law and into coaching. So how did you do that?
Well, a few years ago, after I quit my job as a lawyer and I was just kind of doing real estate and my kids, for fun, I started a women's group on the book The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron.
Oh, yes.
If you're familiar. Yeah, because I had taken that class maybe 15, 16 years before.
That's an old book.
It's old, but I found it so powerful.
Yeah.
And I'd taken it a couple of times, and it was really a class that helped me start shift my thinking quite a bit. Mm-hmm. Other than therapy, which I'd done, but this was totally different, and I found it really powerful. So I just thought, it would be really fun to do, and I ended up doing this group with 10 women who I kind of knew. I knew some of them not very well, and I ran it for a year, and it was just so fun because these women just made huge changes and small changes, but everyone was a lot happier, and a couple of them started their own businesses, and it was just so fulfilling to see them do that. Mm-hmm. And one of the women are and I had mentioned maybe doing coaching one day, and then one of the women dropped off an article about Martha Beck, who I did my coach training with, and one thing led to another, and I'm I'm doing it because it was just so powerful and fun.
Oh, that's pretty neat. And when we need to take a break, but when we come back, I want to talk to you a little bit more about that and about why you decided to focus your coaching practice on joy. So everybody stay with us. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Hi, this is Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. I trust you're enjoying my conversation with this fabulous, victorious woman. If you're getting inspired with ideas and feeling empowered, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's more for you. Tips, downloads, resources at the Victorious Woman Project. Go to victoriouswoman.com and look around and get on my mailing list so you can be the first to know about the newest good things I have for you. That's www.victoriouswoman.com. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour, and we're talking with Kathy McCabe, the Joy Coach. And Kathy, I'm really curious about, a lot of people go into coaching, but what made you focus on joy?
I focus enjoy because I found both in my own life and with working with many, many women especially, is that there are so many things, small things you can do right now, today, to increase your joy. And you don't have to make these huge changes. You might later, but there's just so many little practices that if you start using and practicing, they will help with your joy quotient, and that will help you with the bigger things.
I want to talk to you about that, but before we talk about that part of it, there's something else, and you mentioned it earlier. You say that you were a people pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I personally think steals our joy.
100%. 100%. And I call myself a work in progress everything. I mean, I think I'm largely over people pleasing, but I see sometimes how it still seeps up. But yes, it does suck your joy, because then you're so focused on other people. I mean, wanting other people's approval is normal, but when you do it to the extent of losing yourself, that's where you're going to lose your joy, because you're so worried about other people and their happiness. You're not worried about your own. And I know you talk about this too, but it's like, that radical self-care that you give for yourself, that's a gift not only to yourself, it's a gift to your family and the world.
Yeah, that's really true. I think that's really important. But I have to tell you, Kathy, I'm a little fascinated by that people pleaser thing. And I read that you mentioned it earlier, and I did read it in your bio. But how could you have been in the practice of law and been a people pleaser? I don't get that part, because you said you like to argue. So I would think that you would be, like stand up for yourself, assertive.
It wasn't that I was assertive in court or anything like that, but for instance, like maybe it was like with my colleagues at work, or like wanting them to like me, or other partners, and wanting their like approval. And I tell you, the crazy thing is, and the more I like stopped worrying about that and focused on like just doing my job and being the real me, and the authentic me, the more I got like promotions. The more I got, quote, approval, opposed to like, trying to get people to like me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you know what? Let's talk about that for a minute, Kathy, because I think that's something that I think a lot of times we don't understand. As women, we don't understand. It's not that men don't do it, because I think some men do, but I think that they're less concerned about. I don't think they're less concerned about what other people think about them, but I think that they're more concerned about themselves and what they think about in their own lives. Women, on the other hand, are always focusing on, not always, but they're focusing on that whole thing about everybody wanting everybody to be happy and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think, and so I think that you're right. It takes you away from who you really are, but and I guess what I want to say is, like, sometimes when you're talking to somebody and they know you're a people pleaser, they can't trust. This is me, and trust me, I've done my share of people pleasing. But what I started to notice was when somebody is like that, and they're always telling you what they think you want to hear or what they think, then I have come to find that I don't trust what they have to say as much.
Of course not, because they're like a chameleon, right? They're not being who they authentically are, or they're saying that just so that you like them or whatever. I mean, not being a people pleaser it doesn't mean you're a jerk to others, right? It's just like, it's about, just owning who you are, what you really love, what you don't like, how you want to spend your energy and time, who you want to be with. That's how I view, not being a people pleaser.
And you and I both, we do enough work with women to know that how important that is, but we also know how hard it is for women to stop doing that people-pleasing thing. Mm-hmm. When you're talking with women in your joy circles, how do you tell them to start getting away from being a people pleaser?
Well, I think the first thing is to really, to really focus on your thoughts. I mean, I talk a lot about this, and it's a lot about just creating your own joy, is realizing your thoughts create your feelings, right? And really realizing what's running in your brain runs your life. And if you are so focused on other people, and if you take a few minutes every day to write about what you're thinking, it doesn't matter what it is, you're going to see, wow, it's, I want to get this person's approval or not. And just being aware of that is super, super powerful. So I would say that's the first thing, like really notice your thoughts and why you're trying to get someone's approval or not. And so often, this is what's so interesting, the people that we want the approval from are not people, are usually quite often people that we don't even know well or we don't particularly like or respect. That's what's really interesting.
That is really interesting. And that you don't know them well. And maybe you would like and respect them if you knew them better, but you really don't. So you've sort of created, this is what I think, this is what I do, maybe, and you can tell me whether you notice this with other women. I sort of create a persona around that person that may or may not have anything to do with who they really are.
Exactly.
And
right.
that's the person. Sometimes I think in the back of my mind it's my mother. It's like how we want to please our mothers.
100%. And that's so funny you say that, too. It's like Martha Beck has this book, Finding Your Own North Star, and there's a great exercise in there. If anybody wants to do this exercise, it's really great. It's who is your everybody? And your everybody is usually like 5 or 6 people, and quite often there are things like your mother, and it's your college professor trying to get their approval for English, or, they were never going to give you their approval anyway. So it's just really like these few people who really in the back of your mind, that's who the approval you're seeking.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I have to tell you, this is a funny thing that when I was first in my first apartment, and then when my spouse and I moved into our first house, if I knew my mother was coming, I used to dust the baseboards.
Yeah.
Because that was a big thing with my mother. I don't even know why it was a big thing with my mother. Maybe it was a big thing with her mother. Who knows? But I used to, and especially when I was with Joseph, he'd be like, why do you care? Because my mother, and he would think that was the strangest thing, that I would dust the baseboards when my mother was coming. I'd clean everything else, and we would clean it together. But it was really important that those baseboards were clean.
Yeah, right. And probably, not to psychoanalyze you, I'm not a therapist, but, it's like, okay, maybe that's the way you got her attention or approval, right?
Yeah, very well could be. And then you know what I figured out? I figured out that my mother at that time she was in her 60s at that point. She probably couldn't even see the dust.
Yeah, right.
Her vision was probably like shot, not totally shot, but it was like getting enough that she probably didn't even see the dust.
Right.
It was very freeing when I realized that.
It's freeing. And it's funny. It's like even myself, when I was a new mom and parent, it was like I realized I wanted these other parents who I didn't know well to approve of me and like me. And it was the strangest thing when I stepped back and looked at it. It's like, I don't even know these people. They may be great people, but I felt like I was seeking their approval, and it was crazy. It was like I was putting this energy into people I didn't really know. And trying to get their approval. And it was like, why? So that they tell me I'm a good mom, opposed to like really owning it myself, right? And that's what I think it all comes down to, people pleasing. When you can really own and validate yourself, you don't need other people's approval, right?
Yeah, I think that, and I think sometimes, Kathy, that's hard for us to do as women, I think. And not that I think the guys don't have that same issue, but I just don't think they have it as strongly. I don't think that they're socialized to have it as strongly as we as women are. Yeah,
I would agree. It takes more women. It takes more work to break free of it. But I agree. Women are more socialized to make sure everyone's happy. Yeah. Make sure everyone's taken care of, and not focused on themselves. I would.
Yeah, everyone else, and not necessarily ourselves.
Right. Yeah. The thing is, when we don't focus on ourselves, what happens? That anger and resentment boils over.
Yeah, it absolutely
and,
does.
You know, it manifests in ways that probably aren't healthy for ourselves sometimes, or maybe, you know, in the best ways to other people around us.
So if I wanted to stop my people-pleasing behaviors, what's the first thing you would tell me to do?
I would tell you first to, again, you know, I really believe in journaling a little bit every day, and especially around that people-pleasing piece. I would write down, like, okay, I want this person's approval and why, and just taking that notice of, you know, why you're seeking their approval. And the other second important point is anytime you're seeking for someone's approval, attention, ask yourself this question: how can I approve of myself in this moment? So quite often when we seek someone else's approval or whatever it is, we're not giving it to ourselves. Does that make sense? And when we can ask that question to ourselves, it's like, how am I not loving myself at the moment, right? Because if I really, truly loved and approved of myself, I'm not going to be worried about that other person, right?
Yeah, that's really true. And you know what else, Kathy? We both work with women, so we know this. Most times, if you say to a woman, "What do you want?" she can give you a 5-minute list of what she doesn't want, but not always what she really, really does want.
Yeah, 100%, 1,000%.
And sometimes I think if when we know what we want, you know, if we're taking care of our kids, we know everybody better move out of the way because we're taking care of our kids and we're fighting for something for them. It was Kathy Hilton, Paris Hilton's mother, who one time said that she was being complimented on her something she said this a long time ago about that defending her daughter Paris, but when it comes to fighting for herself, she can't do it. And I thought, that was kind of amazing to me, and especially for someone who had all that kind of money. That that she could say what she could do it for somebody else, but couldn't do it for herself. But I think when we know what we want, like we want to take care of our kids, or we want that new house, or something like that, we can fight for ourselves. So but
it's I think it's for many women it's just allowing them to want what they want, and allowing them to say it's okay to want other things besides just for your children, right?
Yeah, and to want what you want because you probably also had this experience where somebody says, well, if there was nothing in your way, what would you want? And they tell you, and they say, but that could never happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I tell you this, if they have that thought, it's never going to happen.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like our thoughts, are the first step for everything. And that's one really important thing that I really try to teach and practice myself is you really have to manage your mind every day. You have to take time to say, okay, what am I going to focus on? What do I want to create today? What's my intention for the day? And not let it be dragged around by other things that aren't important to you.
And that's true. My listeners know I've said it many, many times. Thoughts are things.
Right.
Yeah.
What runs in your brain runs your life.
Yep.
Always.
Kathy, we need to take another break, but everybody else hang in there with us and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour.
Remember when you wished you had more time for yourself? And now you have it, but you notice you're keeping busy with stuff, but that stuff isn't making you feel happy or filled up? And when you think about what would make you happy and filled up, you get stuck or feel overwhelmed. And then you go back to what's more familiar, more comfortable, even if it's not making you happy. Wouldn't you love to find a way to start making sense of that deep discontent you're feeling? Well, you're not alone. I'm Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. And I know there's a place for you, one that other women have found to be both inspirational and empowering, and it's the Victorious Woman Project. Go there now and get on my mailing list, where you'll be the first to know about my upcoming online workshops, teleseminars, and more. And while you're there, take a couple minutes to look over my blog, You can download some of the free stuff I have for you and let it get your creative juices going. I'm looking forward to meeting you at the Victorious Woman Project, and that's at www.victoriouswoman.com.
Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm here with the Joy Coach, Kathy McCabe. And Kathy, you know, it would seem that when you see a newborn baby, they are just joyful. No, unless they want to eat. But most of the time, they're just like joyful little things. What do you think happens that we don't have joy in our lives? Like, why don't we, like when I see those little babies, I feel joyful because I feel like I tune into that joy.
Right. Well, babies are the perfect example of present moment living, right?
That's true.
They are just there, eating, breathing, you know, laughing, crying when they don't get what they want, but then they're over it, right? So, you know, they just live their lives, you know, just being super present and happy.
And so I was talking earlier about Mara Martin, and we're talking about babies here. So, she was doing that walk on the runway while she was breastfeeding, and you know, none of that really bothered me except for the women can do it all thing. What did you think of that?
Well, I think the message that women can do it all is not a great one for women, because it's not about doing it all. It's about doing, you know, what you want and getting help and loving what you're doing. And doing it all typically means you're miserable because you can't do it all. You know, you can't, you know, it's super hard to work full time and not have lots of help. And that's okay having lots of help. But it's just like recognizing, you know, you need help and you need support and you need your partners to be full partners. I once wrote a blog. It's like you don't hear the term working dad, right? You hear the term working mom.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, right? So working dads, you know, and again, it's nothing against men in general. It's not like it's their fault. It's part of women's fault too, right? And it's not even about fault. It's just how, you know, we've been socialized. Like, you know, women are expected to do all these additional tasks and take care of everyone else before they take care of themselves.
You know, Kathy, you're right. And there's a phrase that I learned to use over time when I was, especially when I was doing corporate training, that they were women who were working outside the home versus women who were working inside the home, because for a while when they talked about women working outside the home, women who were stay-at-home moms said, well, what do you think, we don't work?
Oh, God, no kidding. That's for sure. Right. I mean, staying at home full time, I tell you, I ran a team of attorneys. It can be way harder.
Yeah.
Than being able to, you know, do my work, get paid for it, you know, and all that, you know. So, work, you know, just being a mom is plenty of very hard work. So
here was the thing, Kathy, that I think the thing that shocked me the most about what Mara Martin wrote on her Instagram was she's in her 30s. How did that happen that she's in her 30s and she's talking about women can do it all? That was like our mother's generation. That was like the, you know, you can fry up the bacon and, you know, whatever, all that stuff. How is it that somebody in her early 30s is still needing to express that women can do it all thing? And why isn't it they haven't gotten to the understanding that, yes, we can, but we don't have to?
Right. I can't speak for her. I don't know what her feelings and motivation are for her. But, you know, the workforce for sure has changed very much in the past, 20-something years for women in a good way, and we still have a long way to go, Mm-hmm. I mean, the Me Too movement and, pay is going up, but it's still not equal. And it's still, and for example, there was a big article in the New York Times. It's like just being pregnant, your wages go down. Everything else is the same. If you're pregnant, your wages go down, And so, I'm not sure, again, her experience, but, it's definitely not an equal workforce generally between women and men. And, maybe that's, again, I can't speak for her, but doing it all, we all need help. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, I think that that's a good thing. And no, none of us can speak for her because she was speaking from her own experience. But, but it just, when I saw that, I thought, oh, geez. Somebody older might have been saying that, the first time, it's that iconic picture from the 1940s, when women were working during the war, but then they stopped. When the men came home, they went back to the home. So it was not until that second wave of feminism that idea first came, that started really coming out. But I would have thought we would have been past that by now.
Right. Right. Well, yeah. Well,
and some of us are.
What's that?
And some of us are.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
So, Kathy, listen, I want to be more joyful this weekend. And I'm paying attention to my thoughts. So I'm thinking about being happier this weekend. But what are some, and I've been journaling, so I was paying attention to what you told me, when I was in one of your circles, and I started journaling, and now this weekend I want to be more joy focused. So what would you tell somebody like me who's been in your circle? I've been journaling, and I'm thinking about, I'm watching my thoughts. Now what do I do?
Okay, so the first thing I would tell you is, again, take a little time each morning, 15 minutes at least, if you can. If you only have 5, take 5. And write down, get out whatever you need to get out. And then ask yourself, what's your intention for this weekend? What's your intention for the day? And when we approach things with intention, it's so powerful. I want to enjoy my day. I want to, quite often my intention is I want to be calm and centered no matter what, And so then I remind myself, I might put a reminder, put a Post-it note, put it on my phone. Oh, I'm going to be calm and centered. If my child is yelling or whatever, I'm going to be calm and centered because that was my intention. Does that make sense?
That makes great sense. Yep, that's because even just what you say, I want to enjoy my day. How many times do we, as we're rushing to work in the morning, or even when we get up and we're getting out of bed and we're thinking of all the things we have to do instead of, I love that, I want to enjoy my day.
Yes, it's so powerful. And here's the thing, what I really, really try to teach and model myself, it's like, living a joy-filled life does not mean you're happy all the time. It's allowing all your feelings and feeling them. And taking some time in the morning, like if you feel crappy and you're sad about something, it's just like, okay, allowing that, noticing that, and then, like, okay, what's my intention for the rest of the day? It's not pushing it down. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Because, you know what, Kathy, because if I was going to push that down, and sometimes I do, I'm going to eat it away.
Exactly. We're all human. We all do that, and especially our society. We overdrink, we overeat, we over Netflix, we overshop, right? And quite often when we want to not feel those negative feelings, those are the things we do because we're not really taught how to just sit with being uncomfortable or sad. And the crazy thing is, when you allow those uncomfortable feelings, they're not fun, but they pass. Unless it's something really big, and then maybe you need to give yourself more time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, like, if you're dealing with a big grief or loss of, someone, something, that doesn't mean like, ooh, boom, you're over it. And usually those kinds of things, too, it's like you feel maybe a great wave of grief, and then it goes away if you allow it, but then it'll come back in a different way, which is okay and normal, right? Right. But it's allowing those feelings. So I would say, giving yourself intention how you want to approach it, and reminding yourself. And the other thing, too, is having gratitude. I mean, gratitude expands. I like to practice every day. I call them the triple threes. It's like every night before you go to bed, think of 3 things you're grateful for. And then think of, this is a tool adapted from Dan Sullivan, another coach, it's 3 wins. 3 wins, so no matter what happened that day, 3 things that went well. And it could be, I worked out. I didn't yell at my kids. It was sunny. Like, it doesn't matter, but you want to focus on 3 things that went well for you. And then think of three wins you're going to have tomorrow. And you start
that's
practicing.
A good one. Yeah.
You start practicing changing your thinking, because otherwise, if you focus on the negative, what do you get more of?
That negative.
Exactly. You know, so it's like being conscious and training your brain. And that's the exciting thing with neuroscience today, right? We're learning our brains aren't fixed. We can change them at any age if we work on that, if we work on, changing our thoughts.
Kathy, you and I could probably talk about this for a long time, but we have to go. So tell my listeners how they can get in touch with you.
Sure. So you can go to my website, kathymccabe.lifecoach.com. I have a Real Joy group starting online next Friday, July 27th. If you're interested, I'm very excited. If you want to learn more, you can email me at kathymccabe.lifecoach.com. For Annmarie listeners, I'm offering a special coaching session with them if you're really interested in how to increase your joy today.
That's a good thing, Kathy. Kathy, thank you so much for coming to Happy Hour.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Have a very happy, joyful weekend, and I'd love to hear whether your intention is helpful.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. You have the same.
Okay, take care. Thank you.
So, Victory Chicks and you guys, I hear the weekend's going to be rainy, so unless you have some big something to do, it might be fun to take part of the weekend and binge watch something good, or, think about your joy intentions and what you might be interested in doing that could make your life more joyful. If I do the binge watch thing, I'm thinking about that Stranger Things. I've not ever seen it, and people are talking about it, and I think they're in season 3. So Joseph and I are still going to be working on the garage. Yes, it's not finished yet, but better than it was. And the East Ocean Fair starts next week, so it's time for donuts. Here's a quote for you from one of my favorites, from Oprah. It's one of the things that I believe can add to your joy. And it's what Kathy was talking about. And here's the quote. Be thankful for what you have. You'll end up having more. If you concentrate on what you don't have, you will never, ever have enough. So keep those thoughts good. Victory Chicks and you guys, and thanks for coming today. I'm glad that you did. Please join me again next Friday. Chensan.
Thanks for listening to this Friday Happy Hour. Make sure you subscribe, rate and review today's show. And join us again next week for the Friday Happy Hour with Annmarie Kelly.